Folks, welcome back to another episode of The Fallen Badge. Our episode today, the murder of Officer Emily Breidenbach and Officer Hunter Scheel, Chetek Police Department, Cameron Police Department, Wisconsin.
Both officers are down. He's set up with a rifle.
327, Baron. I'm only copying parts. Is he still on scene?
327, we have two officers down. He is set up with a rifle.
A rifle.
And then all of a sudden, I see an officer down and a gentleman on the ground. Looks like he's bleeding on his leg and a rifle on the ground as well.
Barron County Sheriff's Department paging Mayo Clinic ambulance. You requested Highway 8SS for an officer-involved shooting. Time is 15:39. 10-4, we copy. We have EMS page. We'll be sending a chopper. Both officers are down. He's set up with a rifle.
See it. Alright, it's on his left. Alright, I got move the gun. I got lethal. Yep, I got lethal. Cover me, I got guns.
I believe the subject is down. There's 3 subjects down.
Officer Breidenbach was 32 years old. She was coming up on 5 years. Chetek Police Department. Now her mama and daddy were still alive. Brother was still a kicking. She had a fiance and his 4 children. Now her daddy had been the chief of police at Partyville Police Department. Officer Scheel was 23 years old. Now he had about a year on with the Cameron Police Department. He'd been in the Army National Guard and had served in Operation Enduring Freedom. Now his mama was still alive, his stepdaddy, his daddy, and he had 3 sisters. Now most of the information for this episode is going to come from the Attorney General's report on their investigation into this shooting. Now our suspect in this case, 2010 and 2011, he had been hospitalized for mental health evaluations and treatment. Now that 2011, he had gotten a mental health commitment order. Now that order prohibited him from possessing any firearms. Now he was taking his medication and his mental health had stabilized, according to the state of Wisconsin. So now that mental health commitment that barred him from having firearms, it was allowed to expire. So he was free again to go purchase firearms. Now, he'd been involved in a couple of domestic violence cases involving his ex-wife, and that was in March of 2020 and May of 2020. That was prior to and shortly after they had divorced. Now, the divorce proceedings had been initiated by his ex-wife, and that was May 1st, 2020. So obviously he was pretty upset about that. Now, he didn't have a criminal record other than those 2 domestics. Now, he pled no contest to 2 domestic disorderly conduct ordinances in October of 2020. Now, he did that, and in exchange, they dismissed the criminal charges against him. Now, those criminal charges would have prohibited him from having firearms. That's going to come back to haunt everyone in the community up there. Now, September of 2021, him and his wife were officially divorced. Now, March 30th of 2023, they had a hearing because he'd went months and months and hadn't paid any child support. Now, he didn't show up for that hearing, so they put out a civil bench warrant on him for his arrest. Now, the Barron County Sheriff's Department, one of their captains, had spoke to the suspect's daddy on the morning of April the 7th. Now, after talking with the daddy, the captain sent out an alert email, and that was for all the law enforcement personnel in the county about the suspect's declining mental health status. Sure got a bunch of things that the government failed to do here. It's sure going to cost the lives of a couple of good officers. Now, also, when talking to the daddy, Captain had found out that the suspect was carrying a handgun at all times, and it was to warn all officers to be very cautious with the suspect. Now, it's April the 8th, 2023. Officer Breidenbach, she's on routine patrol there in the city of Chetek, and then she sees a suspect driving down the road. Now, she got on the radio and verified that there was still a warrant out for the suspect. Now, she was aware of that warning from the captain of the sheriff's department, so she didn't make her traffic stop just right there. She just began following the suspect. Now, the suspect, he was going northbound on Highway SS, and he's heading out of the jurisdiction of Chetek. So now Officer Breidenbach, she says, I'm going to need another car over here before I stop him. Now, since they're going up the highway there, they holler at Officer Scheel, and he's working that day at Cameron Police Department, so he starts pulling down that way. Not too far. He's staying pretty close to the city limits, but he's just raring to go. And in fact, Officer Breidenbach, she says, I'm going to wait till we get right up there at their city limits, and then we'll make the stop. So now she lights up the suspect. And she did it after they had rounded a curve there in the highway. That curve's right there where those grain silos are on the west side of the highway. Now, the suspect, he pulls over to the shoulder of the road there, and about 0.2 of a mile south of the intersection with US Highway 8. Now, Officer Breidenbach, she pulls in behind the suspect. Now, she doesn't do the typical distance used in an unknown traffic stop. She gets a little bit more distance. This is more of a felony car stop, the way she's got her vehicle positioned. Now, it's about 3:38 in the evening. Now, I saw on some of the footage from Officer Scheel's body cam, and I swear it showed 14:38, which would be 2:38, so his body cam may have been off. Now, Officer Scheel, he comes on southbound. Now, he passes the suspect's vehicle and Officer Breidenbach's vehicle, and he turns around there. There's a little driveway there for a propane company. He turns around, turns his lights on. He pulls up behind Officer Breidenbach's vehicle, come up on the passenger side of Officer Breidenbach's SUV. Now, Officer Breidenbach, once she'd got the suspect stopped, she immediately had opened her door and stood up, and she had her pistol out. At least I'm pretty sure she had her pistol out. And she's hollering instructions for the suspect. Now, this is pretty well makes this a felony car stop, and she's being very smart about this, because with this suspect's reputation, you don't want to take any chances. And now she's using the open door as partial cover. Now, there was a motorist that drove by that verified that Officer Breidenbach was yelling commands at the suspect. Now, evidently, this witness couldn't tell him whether she had her gun out or not, and the Attorney General's report's not for sure either, but I'm pretty sure she did. And now the witness even stated that the officer was telling the suspect to let me see your hands, show me your hands. Now, the suspect, he throws his door open and he jumps out. He's got a AR-15 rifle. Now, they both crank off rounds at each other. Now, Officer Breidenbach, she got on her radio and said he has a gun. Now, she got off 2 shots. One of them struck the suspect in the right leg. Now, he cranked off some rounds back, and he shot and he killed Officer Breidenbach. He's DOA on the scene. Got into the right rear quarter panel of Officer Breidenbach's SUV when the shots are fired that killed Officer Breidenbach. Now he gets on the radio and says shots fired. He initially took cover on the passenger side of her SUV, and then he ran back and got behind his vehicle. He's got a pickup truck, police pickup truck. And then him and the suspect are engaging in a gunfight. Now, when this stop had been made, other cars were going to pull over. There was, I think, at least 4 cars that I heard on the radio transmissions that said they were pulling over. So more help is coming. It's just unfortunate that this shootout's only going to last about 45 seconds. So now Officer Scheel's at the back of his vehicle firing. The suspect is advancing on him firing. Now, Officer Scheel is finally hit by gunfire from the suspect. And at the time he's hit, he's on the passenger side of his truck there on the grass. And he fell to the ground about 15 feet away from the passenger side door of his vehicle. Now his body camera came off because it's shooting straight up in the air. You can see the suspect walk into camera range when he executes Officer Scheel. Now the shots that Officer Scheel had fired, one of those rounds had also struck the suspect in the right leg. So now he's pumping out a little blood during this shootout. Now the investigators on the scene estimated that the suspect fired at least 10 rounds from his AR-15. Now the suspect also had a loaded 9mm handgun, and it was in a shoulder holster underneath his jacket. Now, investigators determined that Officer Breidenbach had fired 2 rounds from her pistol. Officer Scheel had fired 9 rounds from his pistol. Now, those 2 rounds in his right leg were not immediately fatal. But now the whole time he's been involved in this shootout and walking around, he was pumping out blood. The ME would later determine that the suspect died as a result of his femoral artery being struck. Now, he didn't state which officer's round did it. Of course, it might have been both rounds. But after he has put execution rounds into Officer Breidenbach and Officer Scheel, the suspect had walked back along the grass on the passenger side of the police vehicles, and he was leaning against the front hood of his vehicle. He's standing at the back of his vehicle when that deputy drives right by him. That deputy probably needs to go to church, because he sure could have killed her. Now, after the suspect's at the front of his vehicle for a little bit, he walks back to the rear of his vehicle, and that's where he finally fell down to the ground. Now, he tried to get up, and he couldn't do it. Now, when other officers get there, they move up on the suspect, and they recover the AR-15 and the 9mm. Now, I heard on one of the body cameras from the officers that there was a second rifle in that vehicle. I don't know what kind it was. Now, those rounds that killed the suspect, they were through and through, so they went one side of the leg and come out the other, and they blew out his femoral artery. So I imagine he pumped out. They said he actually got to the hospital before he died. I can't believe he'd have lasted that long with a wound like that. And then the time it took him to walk back to his vehicle, stand by his vehicle, and then fall to the ground was 1 minute and 35 seconds. Now, I've included in the resource material some of the resource material for the body cameras, and there's also some video from a business across the street if you want to see all that. We sure got to figure out a way to keep people that are having mental issues, keep them from getting a hold of guns. I sure don't know what we're going to do, but we need to do something with it. Officer Emily Breidenbach. Officer Hunter Timothy Scheel. End of watch, April 8th, 2023.